They say family is the safety net that catches you when you fall. But what happens when the people holding the net are the ones who pushed you off the ledge? I remember the exact moment my life shattered. It was 10:14 a.m. on a Tuesday. I was nursing one of my twins while the other finally napped. I was exhausted, yes. I was struggling, maybe. But I was a mother who loved her children more than life itself. Then came the knock. Not a friendly visit. Not a check-in. It was Child Protective Services. And as I stood there, trembling, holding my babies, I saw my mother-in-law standing behind the caseworker with a look of pity on her face. That was the day I found out that the woman I called mom had spent months systematically destroying my reputation, documenting my every mistake, and lying to the state, all to steal my children from me because she decided I wasn't worthy of them. This is the story of the most calculated betrayal of my life, and the calm, cold verdict that eventually tore her world apart. To understand how we got to that Tuesday morning, you have to understand the dynamic of my marriage. I married Mark 4 years ago. Mark is a wonderful man, but he comes from a family that operates like a cult of personality. At the center of it all is Evelyn, his mother. Evelyn is the kind of woman who wears pearls to a casual brunch and speaks in a soft, melodic voice that hides a razor blade. She doesn't scream, she implies. She doesn't fight, she manipulates. For years, I played the game. I tried to be the perfect daughter-in-law. I tolerated the passive-aggressive comments about my career, my cooking, and eventually, my parenting. When I found out I was having twins, I was overjoyed. But Evelyn's reaction was different. She didn't say congratulations. She said, "Oh, honey. Twins. That's a lot for someone with your temperament. You're going to need a lot of help." My help. From that moment on, the help became a weapon. The first 6 months after the twins were born were a blur of sleep deprivation and sheer survival. If you've never had twins, let me tell you, it's not just double the work. It's a constant state of emergency. I was functioning on 3 hours of broken sleep a night. I was leaking milk, I had dark circles under my eyes that wouldn't go away, and I cried a lot. Evelyn was there. Every day. She would come over under the guise of supporting me. She'd bring me tea, fold the laundry, and hold the babies. But she wasn't just helping. She was observing. I remember one afternoon, I had a complete meltdown. I wasn't hurting the babies, they were safe in their cribs, but I was sitting on the kitchen floor, sobbing because I couldn't get both of them to stop crying at the same time. I felt like I was failing. I looked up and saw Evelyn standing in the doorway. She didn't offer me a hug. She didn't tell me I was doing a great job. She just tilted her head, a small, thin smile on her lips, and said, "Are you feeling stable, dear? I'm worried your nerves are finally snapping." At the time, I thought she was just being her usual, judgmental self. I didn't realize she was taking mental notes. I didn't realize that every time I admitted I was tired, every time I asked for a break, and every time I had a moment of weakness, she was building a case against me. As the months passed, Evelyn's behavior shifted from passive-aggressive to actively subversive. She started mentioning things to Mark that I had never said. "Mark, honey, Sarah mentioned she's feeling really depressed. I think she might need professional help. I'm worried she can't handle the babies." I would hear this from the other room and freeze. I was tired, and I was struggling with the transition, but I wasn't clinically depressed to the point of danger. When I confronted her, she would gasp, her hand flying to her chest. I was only expressing concern. "How dare you accuse me of malice when I'm the only one helping you?" She played the martyr. She made Mark feel like he was the only thing keeping our household together, and that I was a fragile, breaking woman who needed her guidance. Then, the incident started. I started finding things in my house that I knew I had put away. A bottle of prescription painkillers, which I didn't even take, suddenly appeared on the nightstand. I remember the sheer panic I felt finding them there. I searched the house, thinking someone had broken in, but the doors were locked. One day, I walked into the nursery and found the baby gate open. The twins were in their playpen, so they were safe, but the gate was wide open. I knew I had closed it. I always closed it. I looked at the security camera in the hallway, but the footage for that hour had been corrupted. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was just losing my mind from the sleep deprivation. I told myself that my mother-in-law loved her grandchildren. But the truth is, Evelyn didn't love the twins, she loved the idea of the twins. She wanted the status of being the savior grandmother. She wanted the control. And she realized that as long as I was the mother, she was just a guest. To become the center of their world, she had to remove me. She began a campaign of concern to the rest of the family. My sister-in-law, my cousins, everyone started treating me differently. They would look at me with pity. They would offer to take the babies for a weekend with an intensity that felt less like a favor and more like an intervention. I felt like I was being gaslit by an entire bloodline. I would tell Mark, something is wrong. Your mother is acting strange, and Mark, bless his heart, was blinded by his loyalty to her. He'd say, Sarah, you're just stressed. Mom is the only one who's actually helping us. Just let her be. That was the final piece of the puzzle. Evelyn had isolated me from my husband. I was alone in my own home, fighting a ghost, while the person I trusted most was being conditioned to see me as unstable. Tuesday. 10:14 a.m. When I opened the door, the air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. The caseworker, a woman named Ms. Gable, didn't smile. She had a clipboard and a look of professional detachment. Mrs. Sterling? I'm with Child Protective Services. We've received a report regarding the welfare of your children. My heart didn't just beat, it thrashed against my ribs. A report? What? My children are fine. Who would? I looked past Ms. Gable. And there she was. Evelyn. She didn't look triumphant. That would have been too obvious. No, she looked heartbroken. A single tear tracked down her cheek. She whispered, I'm so sorry, Sarah. I tried to help you. I tried to cover for you. But I couldn't let the babies be at risk anymore. The accusations poured out of Evelyn's mouth like a rehearsed script. She told Ms. Gable that I had been spiraling. She claimed I had been using unprescribed medication to cope. She told her that I had left the babies unattended for hours while I'd slept in a stupor. She even claimed that she had found the babies in unsafe conditions, citing the open baby gate and missing supplies that she herself had orchestrated. The most devastating part? She had evidence. She produced a notebook. A concern journal. For 3 months, she had documented every time I cried, every time I looked tired, every time I had a disagreement with her. She had twisted normal motherhood struggles into symptoms of a mental breakdown. See, Evelyn whispered to the caseworker, she's starting to shake again. This is exactly what I told you about. I wasn't shaking because I was unstable. I was shaking because I was being robbed in broad daylight. Ms. Gable was professional, but the report was detailed. In the eyes of the law, a concerned grandmother providing a dated log of events is far more convincing than a sleep-deprived mother screaming that she's being framed. They didn't take the babies immediately, but they opened a formal investigation. They placed me under strict supervision. This meant Evelyn, the very woman who had betrayed me, was appointed as the family liaison to ensure the children's safety until the investigation was closed. Evelyn had won. She didn't have to take the babies by force, she had just moved herself into the position of power. She was now the guardian in the eyes of the state, and I was the suspect in my own living room. The next 3 weeks were a psychological war. Evelyn didn't stop at the CPS call. Now that she had the caseworker's ear, she used it to torture me. She would wait until I was in the room and then make a suggestion to Ms. Gable. Maybe Sarah should have a supervised visit with the babies while I take them for a walk? I just don't want her to feel overwhelmed. She was trying to normalize the idea of the babies being away from me. She was grooming the caseworker to believe that I was a liability and she was the solution. And Mark? Mark was in a state of total collapse. He was caught between the wife he loved and the mother who had raised him. Evelyn played the I did it for the children card perfectly. She told him, Mark, I know you're angry, but wouldn't you rather I be the one to report it than a stranger? I saved you from a much worse tragedy. I felt like I was disappearing. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I spent every waking second trying to be perfect. I cleaned the house until my fingers bled. I logged every ounce of formula, every diaper change, every minute of sleep. I tried to show Ms. Gable that I was the most fit mother on the planet. But the more I tried, the more manic I looked to the caseworker. "You seem very anxious, Mrs. Sterling," Ms. Gable told me during one of her visits. "Perhaps a period of separation would give you time to get your mental health in order." I realized then that I couldn't fight this with perfection. I couldn't win by being a good mother because Evelyn had already redefined what good looked like. I had to stop playing defense. I had to go on the offense. I started thinking. If Evelyn was as calculated as I believed, she wouldn't have left any one piece of evidence, she would have left a trail. She was too arrogant to think I could ever outsmart her. I remembered the corrupted footage of the baby gate. I remembered the painkillers that appeared out of nowhere. I remembered her concern journal. I spent 3 nights awake, not from the babies, but from research. I contacted a private tech expert, a former colleague of mine, and asked him to look at the corrupted files from my security system. It wasn't a glitch, he told me over the phone. The files weren't corrupted. They were manually deleted and then overwritten with a loop of empty hallway footage. Someone with access to the admin password did this. My heart stopped. I didn't have the admin password. Only 2 people did, me, and the person who had helped me set up the system 3 years ago. My mother-in-law. The final hearing was set for a Friday. The goal was to decide if the children should be placed in temporary kinship care, which meant they would be moved into Evelyn's house full-time while I underwent a mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Evelyn arrived at the courthouse looking like a saint. She wore white. She held a handkerchief. She looked like the grieving grandmother fighting for the souls of her grandchildren. When it was her turn to speak, she played her greatest hits. She talked about my instability, my breakdowns, and her heartbreaking duty to report me. She spoke with such conviction that I could see Ms. Gable nodding in agreement. Then, it was my turn. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even look at Evelyn. I stood up, walked to the podium, and placed a USB drive on the table. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady and cold. "I agree that the welfare of my children is the priority. And that is why we need to discuss the welfare of the person who filed this report." The courtroom went silent. In the video, Evelyn was alone with the twins. She wasn't singing to them. She wasn't cuddling them. She was talking to them. "Soon, you'll be with me," she whispered to the babies. "And we'll tell everyone how your mommy just couldn't handle you. We'll tell them how grandma saved you. You're too precious to be wasted on a girl like her." The look on Evelyn's face in the courtroom shifted. The saint mask didn't just slip, it shattered. She turned pale, then red, then purple. She started screaming. "That's a fake. That's edited. She's trying to trick you. She's unstable. I told you she was unstable." The irony was delicious. In her attempt to prove I was unstable, she had a full-blown meltdown in front of a judge. She was screaming, pointing fingers, and losing her mind, all while I stood there, silent and still. The judge didn't even need to finish the hearing. The verdict was swift. The case against me was dismissed with prejudice. Not only was I cleared, but the judge referred the matter to the district attorney's office for investigation into filing a false police report and child endangerment, since she had intentionally created hazards in the home to frame me. The fallout was immediate. Mark finally saw the monster he had been protecting. The betrayal wasn't just against me, it was against him and his children. He didn't just cut Evelyn off, he banished her. No phone calls. No visits. No concerns. He realized that the woman who claimed to love his children was willing to destroy their mother to get her way. As for Evelyn, she tried to play the victim one last time. She told the family that I had brainwashed Mark. She tried to sue me for defamation. But with the footage and the tech reports, her legal team told her to drop it. She was a pariah in her own family. I remember the last time I saw her. It was a few months later, at a family gathering she tried to crash. She approached me, her voice returning to that soft, melodic whisper. "Sarah, dear, I only did it because I love them. I thought I was saving them." I looked her in the eyes. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel hate. I felt nothing. Which is the most powerful feeling of all. I leaned in and whispered, "The only thing you saved, Evelyn, was my ability to see exactly who you are. And the verdict is in, you are nothing to my children." Healing took time. I did go to therapy, not because I was unstable, but because I had been through a trauma that would break anyone. I learned how to trust again. I learned that help is only help if it comes with respect. Today, my twins are thriving. They will grow up knowing that their mother fought for them. And they will grow up knowing that blood does not make a family, loyalty and love do. In the end, the most dangerous people aren't the ones who scream at you. They're the ones who whisper that they're the only ones who can help you while they're digging your grave. If you're going through something similar, if you feel like you're being gaslit or isolated by the people who are supposed to love you, trust your gut. Document everything. And remember that the truth has a way of coming to light, no matter how deep they try to bury it. The verdict is always delivered eventually. And for those who build their lives on lies, that verdict is usually a very lonely place. Thank you for listening to this story. If this resonated with you, or if you've dealt with a toxic family member, share your experience in the comments below. Let's support each other. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Calm Verdict Stories for more tales of betrayal, justice, and resolution. Until next time, keep your peace and trust your truth.